Hello everyone and welcome! Today I've got the custom 124 scale RC39 Chevy Coupe back on the bench. After getting all of the electronics installed in the last video, today I'm finally going to be getting everything up and running and drive this car for the first time. I'll be figuring out a way to create some custom body mounts, and I'll also be painting and weathering the chassis. As this car is getting closer to being complete, it's really exciting to see how it's coming together. This car is already looking super scale, and I can't wait to share today's update with all of you. Also, be sure to stick around till the end, as I'll be announcing the winner of the giveaway that I talked about in the last video. Before I begin, if you'd like to catch up on the prior videos featuring this project, I'll be sure to leave a link to the video playlist below in the description. But with all that said, let's dive back into this project. So as you may recall from the last video, I had some issues getting the car to work. The car would power on and the steering servo worked, but not the motor. I thought that the ESC I had was bad. However, it actually turns out I had it oriented 180 degrees from where it is right now, meaning that all of these wires were going into the wrong spot. After flipping the ESC around and getting everything resoldered, now it works just fine. It took me way too long to figure that out, but oh well, at least it works now. After messing around with the ESC, I made one other change since the last video. I've got plenty of room in the trunk for a battery, so I thought I'd switch to using this larger 260 mAh LiPo instead. The plug on this battery though was larger than the prior one. The plug was too large to fit through this little hole I created, so I just made this little adapter so this here can fit through the hole no problem, and then I can plug this in and have the larger battery sitting in the trunk. Yeah, I feel like a fool for getting that ESC mixed up. I can't believe how long it took for me to realize that it was just flipped around. At least it works now, finally. It's time to move on to the next item on the agenda. So I'd like to come up with a way to secure the frame to the body, which keeps the frame solidly attached, but still allows it to be removable if needed. As you may recall, one of the requirements I set for myself for this project is I can only use STL files currently available on Patreon. I'm challenging myself to use models that we've already posted rather than design new ones. Sort of putting myself in the perspective of one of our Patreon members, building a custom car like this from parts that we have available. When coming up with some sort of mount, I have had to get a bit creative, but I think I've come up with a good solution. These here are steering servo mounts generally used for a FFR SC1 chassis. I've chopped off a little section on the top, and what I'm thinking of doing is gluing each one to these outer portions of the frame rail, and then putting a screw through each one of the holes, connecting it to this piece here. I'm kind of limited on where I can place these. They sort of have to be right in this section here, but I'm hoping that the seats will cover up where the screws come up to secure the frame. I know with this layout here it isn't perfectly symmetrical, but I'm thinking maybe trying to keep it at a bit of an angle will help with alignment. I think I'm going to go ahead and secure these mounts to the frame and then drill out the holes and secure the frame to the body. Hopefully these two mounts right here will be enough. I got each mount positioned where I wanted and then carefully glued each one to the frame, making sure not to accidentally glue them to the body. To effortlessly create some guide holes, I used a hot pin. I drilled out each hole and used a couple of screws to secure the frame. I guess looking back, I could have installed two additional body mounts just for symmetry and aesthetics, but these two screws were all it needed. Just with these two mounts in place, the frame is absolutely solid. Super happy with how this frame went together. From here I can go ahead and do the paint and weathering on the frame and get the engine put in place. Before I started painting, there was still one detail I wanted to add, and that's creating some holes in the tailpipes. As you can see, they're solid rather than being pipes, so I just cut the back edge so it's flat, and then I drilled some holes. As you'll see later, this little extra detail helps improve the realism on the backside of the vehicle. A very subtle detail, but I thought it was worth doing. Nothing fancy here as far as the painting goes. I just used a little flat black, flat rust brown, and some aluminum paint. I could have probably done some cool stuff with an airbrush. However, just doing everything by hand kept things simple, and it made sure I didn't get paint where I didn't want it. I don't really want to get the electronics and the motor covered in paint. It probably wouldn't be an issue, but I'd rather not risk it. Sort of like what I did with that Shelby GT350 project I showcased prior, I wanted just a bit of weathering, typical surface rust and grime, but not full-on rust everywhere. So I've got the chassis painted and weathered, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I painted the frame and the drivetrain flat black, and it provides some variation. I painted things like the exhaust and the leaf springs silver. After that, I lightly brushed on some matte brown to kind of look like a bit of rust and maybe some dirt. Of course, when you're doing weathering, you can buy specific powders and washes. I've had some success using simple things like a colored pencil and some pastels. The color pencil is good for making little scrapes and paint chips, stuff like that. There's a lot of different methods and techniques. I'm by no means an expert, but it's fun to experiment a bit and see what you can come up with. I may play around with some weathering on this chassis a little bit more, but I didn't want it to look too rusty. I certainly don't want it to look brand new and perfect, but I also don't want it to look like it came off the wreck of the Titanic. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and install this engine. After doing some test fits, I think I may need to remove a little bit of material from this top edge of the exhaust. I think they may be sitting just a little bit too high to the point where they make contact with the floor before the frame does. But aside from maybe needing to massage a few things here and there to get the engine to sit right, it should go together just fine. I am very happy with how well this kit has gone together, especially for being a kit I think was originally released in like the late 70s or 80s. Overall, I think the detail and the fit and finish is very good. And like I said before, it's almost like it was made for these types of RC conversions. Everything's gone together just about perfectly. I have enjoyed putting this kit together. As I mentioned before, Revell has recently reissued this kit in the form of a sedan delivery version that would definitely make for a cool build. For now though, I needed to get this engine glued into place. I did my best to get it to sit level and not be tilted to one side. As I anticipated, I did need to remove some material from the top side of the exhaust as they were preventing the frame from sitting up against the floor. Not a big deal, as you won't see these sections when the chassis is in place. Here we can get a good look at the chassis with that engine now in place. Again, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I think the undercarriage of this car is going to look great once I'm able to paint the body and do some similar weathering on the bottom of the floor pans. Despite the steering servo being located in part of the area where the radiator would be, I still wanted to try to fit the radiator included with the plastic model. Obviously, it required some cutting to get the radiator to fit, but I was able to make it work. You won't really be able to see the radiator once the grille and the hood are in place, but it's there. Of course, with the chassis complete and the car now up and running, I wanted to do a quick test drive. As you can see, the car works perfectly. This 39 Chevy is now officially a fully functioning plastic model kit. I really couldn't be happier with how this car is coming together. At this point, all of the harder work is done. All I have to do is paint and assemble the body and add the interior. Don't forget, I've also got some functioning lights that'll be going on this car as well. It's going to be awesome looking once it's complete, but before I wrap up today's video, I want to announce the winner of the 110 scale accessories giveaway that I discussed in the last video. I want to thank you all for participating in the giveaway. One name has been randomly selected, and that name is posted on the screen right now. If it's your name that you see on screen, congratulations. You can simply send an email to the following address to claim your prize. Hopefully the prize will be claimed this time, as this is the second time around that I've drawn a name, as those of you who have been following the series might recall. If for whatever reason I don't get a response before the next video, I'm just gonna pull like 10 or 15 random names, throw them up on the screen, and whoever emails first will get it. That's the backup plan, I guess, so hey, why not go back to that prior video if you have not already, and leave the hashtag giveaway. You never know, you might still have a chance. But that is going to be all for today's video. As always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.